Coming up in this episode, I will discuss my progress with creating a second edition of Missing and the results of the book blogging tour. Welcome to Amelia's Behind the Scenes Author Diary, an exclusive look at the behind the scenes misadventures of a 30-something mystery author. Discover how close she is to releasing her latest novel, hear exciting details about upcoming writing projects, and discover the lessons she has learned along her writing journey so you don't have to make the same mistakes. You can find the episode show notes and lots more information at authorpreneurpodcast.com/podcast. Hello writers, I hope you are well and are staying safe. Now that the rewrites of the second edition of Missing are finished, during May I prepared the new edition for publication, and in this episode I'm going to share the exact steps I took to go from revised draft to pressing the button on a second edition of a fiction novel. While I'm on the topic of Missing, I'm going to discuss the results of my book blogging tour. That's everything, the good, the bad and the ugly. I know that sounds overdramatic, but there were some hairy moments in that book blogging tour. Naturally, none of this is a reflection upon the organiser of the tour, it's just how some book bloggers have decided to do business. I don't believe in just sharing the shiny PR version of things. I think it's important to be honest about the experiences I have with these services, because I don't see the point in not being honest. I guess it says everything you need to know about me, really. As always, I'll also share a writing update, book promotion efforts and self-publishing tasks that I've completed, so stay tuned for all of that and much more. Just to let you know, this episode was recorded on Tuesday, the 20th of October, so this show is primarily me looking back at May. In the same spirit as the previous episode, there is a backlog with the show due to the lockdown situation that we're all facing. After a few weeks, I've managed to figure out how to work from home with my husband and do all the things I would typically achieve. If you're on YouTube, you'll notice that I've gone back to the audio-only version of the podcast. That's because of my hair situation and my husband working from home. I'm so sorry for the lack of video for this episode. Throughout this episode, I'll be referencing tools and services that I've used. If you're interested in reading the transcript or would like the links to anything that I've mentioned in the show, then check out the very long blog post or edited transcript at authorpreneurpodcast.com/BTS032. And if you're new to this podcast, then I want to say a huge thank you for stopping by and trying out my show. To those of you who've been faithfully listening to my show, thank you for regularly listening in and supporting me. Your support means more to me than you know. At the beginning of May, I unpublished the paperbacks in KDP and Ingram Spark for Missing. And to unpublish the paperback for Ingram Spark, I had to actually send them an email. There was no unpublish button. So that was a little bit old school, but they replied back to me quite quickly and everything's cool. There were absolutely no dramas. After that, I sent Missing to the line editor. Once I received my manuscript back with the tracked changes, I performed the line edits for the second edition. After I made these line edits, I did actually push my manuscript through Grammarly and ProWriting Aid one more time because I think I had to make one more change, but I didn't send it back to her. It was just a one-pass line edit / proofread. I made additions to the thank you section at the back of the book just to thank a few extra people that helped me to create the second edition. After this, I uploaded the rest of the manuscript into Vellum. I actually created a separate file for this. Well, I duplicated the previous edition, made changes, then I gutted the actual chapters portion of the book and I re-imported the chapters into Vellum. I then went through and I made changes to the keywords that I wanted to use for the paperback and the ebook because I realized that I had published Missing in the wrong genre, that it was definitely a mystery whodunit and not a crime thriller. After this, I made minor changes to the book description and I put that through ProWriting Aid and Grammarly to do a line edit of that, and I added this to KDP, which finally led me to officially press publish on the second edition of the ebook on the 23rd of May. I published the second edition of the paperback in Ingram Spark Spark on the 1st of June, and I published the second edition paperback in KDP on the 8th of June, and this is just the regular paperback. And I know I said I wasn't going to do this cross the timelines, but I didn't want to create a small section in June's podcast diary just to talk about publishing the paperback, because it just seemed a bit ridiculous. And with these two books, the Ingram Spark paperback and the KDP paperback, I've actually used the same ISBN because they're essentially the same edition. They're both 5x8. There's nothing different in both of those paperbacks, so they're the same. So I used the same ISBN. Just to make it really obvious, I used new ISBNs for the paperback editions because I made minor changes to the plot. Even though the word count of the story increased by 2,000 words, because the plot, there were slight changes to the plot, I felt that this warranted a new ISBN. And the label on that ISBN does say second edition. So if you see the missing on Waterstones, it will actually say list the new ISBN, and it says second edition. During the month of May, I worked on the outline for the first in series Cozy Mystery. So I started the month off with a little bit more research into the story structure of a Cozy Mystery, and I added notes to the plot points in my Excel spreadsheet outline because it is a little different than how I outlined Missing. I've just used standard 3-act structure, but with this particular Cozy Mystery series, I've added things that are quite crucial to the Cozy Mystery genre in terms of structure. So I've decided to use a 4-act structure where the second act is broken up into 2 parts. As I worked on the outline, I created a list of scenes leading up to the murder and to the end of Act 1. While I was outlining this story using an Excel spreadsheet, I added a few scenes in Act 2 leading up to the midpoint. And these were only just scenes that I knew needed to happen no matter what. And while I was outlining all of these scenes in Act 1 and the scenes around the midpoint in Act 2, I added beats to my outline as ideas came to me. And these are just beats within the scene. These are emotional moments that I know need to happen in the scene that relate to either clues or red herrings that help the reader piece together the puzzle that is the murder and the mystery surrounding the story. So I'm just trying to find the right words without completely spoiling the plot of my story. And that's all I achieved in terms of the Cozy Mystery writing for this month. I'm super excited to announce that in May, I made huge progress with book 2 in the James Lalonde series. And I'm obviously quite proud of that, considering the last month I was really struggling. So in May, I blocked the characters' movements in a scene using Canva. And I just sort of created a rough outline of what the room looked like. And I put where each character was standing and which direction they were looking in for these particular scenes, because I needed to know where their eye line was. So I needed to know who saw what happening and who couldn't see things. Because book 2 is a murder mystery, and I needed to know what characters knew what or noticed specific things that happened in the scene. The illustration that I created in Canva was quite crude. So I know where each character is in relation to the others. They're just circles, like I mentioned. They're just circles on the page, and you can tell that it's like a living room and one's a dining room and stuff like that. During the same day, I spent time researching Trinity College and Oxford University in order to check whether the events could actually have taken place in real life, and I've allowed for enough distance between travel between scenes. I also did more scene blocking for the first 2 scenes in Act 2, and this actually really helped me to get clear on what I was going to rewrite. So this led me to rewrite the first 2 scenes in Act 2, and I revised the scene after listening to the computer read it back to me in that sort of very robotic voice. Then I performed the line edits with the help of Grammarly and ProWriting Aid. After that, I started to write the first 2 paragraphs for scene 14, which is the next scene in Act 2. At this point, I decided to change the name of the college from Trinity to All Saints after being concerned with lawsuits. Not that anyone from Trinity College was ever going to notice my book, but it was just too play it safe and have one less thing to worry about. So I know this is quite obvious, but the college is now fictional, but the architecture and the buildings are inspired by Trinity College. It was at this point that I started to get blocked with rewriting this book. For some reason, I couldn't bring myself to write the reunion dinner scene or finish scene 14. So the reunion dinner scene is actually the extra scene I wanted to write in the first act, and I couldn't write it for some reason. It's hard to explain, and I think the reasons why I couldn't write this scene have a lot to do with, I guess, my own personal struggle with my confidence in my own ability to write. It's writing novels is one of the few, I think, professions where part of the creative process is where you doubt your own ability to do your job in such a way that it can actually stop you from writing, because there's no such thing as plumber's block or doctor's block, like I can't do surgery today, or things like that. Like no other profession suffers from this, but it's something that I'm experiencing, and I think it's not so much that I'm blocked, it's just that I'm in such a negative mindset at the moment and that it's stopping me from writing. And I think the other thing that was happening, especially with the reunion dinner scene, is I was losing interest in the scene and I felt like I had to write it next. But one of the things that actually really worked well for me this month is I was putting stickers on my calendar on the days that I was writing. And as you can see in the picture over on my blog post, I was struggling to consistently write on one project. I kept jumping between the projects and I sort of made quite a bit of progress, but also no progress quite quickly. Maybe what I meant to say was I was busy but not productive. While I was jumping between projects, I accidentally reminded myself of an idea I got for a short story using Rory's story cubes. Well, it wasn't so much the story, but it was more the 9 story cubes gave me an idea for a scene or the results of the crime. So what happens in the scene is the crime takes place and it's the person reacting to the crime. So it's the victim reacting to the crime. So this Rory's story cube scene idea led me to consider creating a series of James Lalonde mystery short stories. So I plan to publish one short story between Missing and book 2, or maybe I could do both actually, or give it away at the back of the book as a freebie, because right now I've published The Lawn on Amazon, but you can also get it for free by signing up to my mailing list. So the idea is I write 12 short stories, starting with James Lalonde's first assignment as a journalist. To help get this series right, I've created a timeline for this series. So there's one short story every month in a year of James's life, and that year is 2010, and this is where the year he starts as a journalist. He has his first serious job for a newspaper. Eventually, once I've written all 12 short stories, I will create a box set, and I've just realized I need to create a name for that box set, but I've got a long time to worry about that. So this series will feature characters that already exist in the James Lalonde universe. So obviously James Lalonde, DCI Anwar Khan, and occasionally PC David Chan, and all of these characters appear in Missing. So after I got the idea for the series, I started to brainstorm ideas, locations, and I casted the characters using images of actors. And the reason why I do this is quite often I'll look at a particular actor and I'll think, okay, what is it that stands out to me when I first glance at this? And I use that as the main physical trait that James notices about this particular person. And it also stops me from describing every single detail about someone. So it lets me to describe a character, make them seem real, but it also gives the reader room to fill in the rest of the image as well. So I fleshed out the crime. I created a timeline for the events that led up to a crime occurring. And all of this actually occurs off the page in the short story. And the short story is purely just James figuring out the whodunit and how it happened and why. I also went through and created character profiles for the main characters, supporting cast, and the characters are purely mentioned by name but are not present for whatever reason. A lot of research went into figuring out whether it was possible for certain events to take place, whether it was medical, travel, and distance between locations, because I wanted it, again, just like book 2, I wanted to add in a level of realism to the story. So there is an actual journey where this character takes place, and if you really wanted to, you could actually physically drive it. The final step after this is I created an outline in Excel using 3-act story structure, and I started to fill in what I already knew about the story. And this is everything that I managed to get done in the month of May for this James Bond mystery short story. And I also designed the front cover and also the little audiobook cover as well for it. If you've heard something in this episode that was helpful to you and you'd like to support the show, then buy me a coffee for as little as £1 at buymeacoffee.com/author AD Hay. In the behind the scenes podcast diary episode BTS032, I did talk about my experience with the book blogging tour, but I failed to mention that I purchased a 7-day book blogging tour that started from the 28th of April and ended sometime in the first week of May. And that's part of the reason why I couldn't talk about the entire experience in that particular episode. It wasn't just to get you to listen to the next episode of my podcast. It was because I didn't want to cross the timelines. I know I mentioned this in the last episode, but it's worth mentioning again. All the reviews I received were positive, or at least spun that way. Due to the lockdown situation and people having to suddenly work from home and having children at home, 2 book bloggers pulled out at the last minute, which was fine. So I got 13 book blogger reviews in total. I had one book blogger share an extract with a mostly positive review on her website who went on to publish a 2-star rating and review on Amazon in the US, UK and India stores and on Goodreads. That's a lot of effort over a free book. And now tragically the India store has 1 2-star rating. And honestly, this does feel like a personal attack because this person has gone to the extreme to 2-star my book wherever she can get her hands on it. Yeah, I don't know what to do with this because it feels aggressive, but I haven't said anything to the book blogger organizer either, and I don't know what to say because it's so unexpected, and this is obviously the way that she runs her blog. This is how it feels, and this may not be her intention, but this is how it looks to me, and I can only tell you this is how it looks from my perspective because I can't read her mind, and I don't particularly want to raise it with her either. And one of the book bloggers who pulled out had previously left a 2-star rating on Goodreads and shared it with their Twitter audience, but I think that was an automated tweet sent by Goodreads. But that's the risk you take when you sign up for a book blogging tour. They are entitled to their opinion. I just didn't expect people's opinions to be so aggressive, or one person's opinion to be aggressive. At the end of the tour, I ended up with 5 reviews on Amazon, 1 5-star, 3 4-star and 1 2-star, giving the book a 3.8-star average. On Goodreads, as of May, I had 15 ratings and 9 reviews, 3 of which have no rating at all and are just a review published on Goodreads. So I have 3 5-star ratings, 5 4-star, 3 3-star and 4 2-stars. A lot of the 2 stars are just someone just hitting 2 and they have absolutely no explanation, and some of these are obviously off the first edition of Missing and not the second. In terms of the no rating reviews that have been left, 1 was positive, 1 was negative, and 1 person simply put DNF, which is did not finish. And I have a funny feeling this is the Reedsy reviewer because it happened at the same time I received the feedback from Reedsy, or Reedsy Discovery. So this brings my Goodreads rating to 3.47 stars as of May. That's changed a little as of today. I've got a few more reviews. Overall, the experience was fairly great. I don't want to let the experience I had with 2 bloggers out of 13 sort of affect how I felt about the book blogging experience, because everyone else seemed to give me a good rating. They did point out there were a few things, not that they didn't like, but they thought, there were a few minor things they didn't particularly like, but there were also a lot of things that they really loved about the series. So I think that's why a lot of the book blogging reviewers gave me 4 stars. And if it wasn't for this book blogging tour, I wouldn't have any reviews on Amazon as of the end of May. So I would use this service again, but only for a first book in the series. And I probably would say I actually do not want to work with these particular bloggers because of the experience I had. I would rather have someone be honest and instead of being nice to my face but publish a bad review on Amazon, because that doesn't make any sense to me. I don't know why they weren't honest on their blog. Maybe that's because they didn't want to deter other authors from using the service. I don't know, but I just don't understand why there was such a two-faced experience. In May, I also experimented with a few book promotions. The first one was, well, maybe not a few, just two. It was Book Doggy and a boosted Facebook post. So I did a Book Doggy free promotion, and it was for the second edition of Missing. The book is enrolled in KDP Select or Kindle Unlimited for readers, and I used the free days for this promotion. I ended up with 684 downloads from the 28th of May to the 30th of May, and I lined this up around my birthday and the release of the second edition of Missing. And that's purely why I used this Book Doggy free promotion, as I wanted to get a lot of people downloading the book and hopefully reading it, and I was hoping that these free downloads would result in eventually reviews on Amazon. The second promotion I used was a boosted Facebook post to promote the free sales of the second edition of Missing during the same time as the Book Doggy promotion. For one day only, I set a budget of £15. It's not a lot of money. So as a result of that one day boosted Facebook post, I got 125 clicks, including 2 shares, and these 125 clicks were from 2,690 impressions. So it worked out to be 12 pence per engagement, and it was a 4.6 engagement rate. I'm not 100% sure if that is any good whatsoever, and it's hard for me to know which sales resulted from this, or they're not really sales, downloads, so I don't really know. I linked my book funnel buy page where the reader could get the first book for free on Amazon. Not amazing results, but also not bad either. I turned off the Instagram ads because all I get is likes, and the shop button or link button isn't always available, which sort of defeats the purpose of the ad, so I immediately disabled Instagram. Whoops. And once again, this is just me playing around with Instagram ads. I am not recommending that you boost a post. I just want to try it and see what works, and I'm really just slowly tweaking the audience that I've created in Facebook, hoping to use it in the future for something a little bit more serious. I created the ad in Canva. I owned the rights to the stock images that I purchased, but I just wanted to use Canva because it was quick and easy, and Photoshop does take a little longer to use. And if you're curious to see what image I came up with, you can see the picture of the ad on the blog post, and there'll be a link in the show notes in your favorite podcasting app. I also recommend you watch David Gogren's video on creating images for Facebook ads. If you're not sure how to create an ad, I'll leave a link to that in the show notes on the blog and in your favorite podcasting app. So what results did I get from this? So on my birthday, the 29th of May, Missing reached the 7th position on the top 100 list in private investigator mysteries charts and in the international mystery and crime chart on Amazon's US Kindle store. Once again, there are screenshots of my book sitting in these positions over on the blog post. This is the first time I've made it to a top 10 position on the free chart, so I'm quite excited about it, but I know it's not really a big deal. So in May, I finally got around to setting up a new author profile on Goodreads for my pen name A.D. Hay. I do have another profile, and that's just for a few nonfiction things I published that I'm really crossing my fingers that no one ever downloads or buys on Amazon, but I do have a second pen name. And what I found interesting with creating a second account on Goodreads is all of the Goodreads help tells you that you can't have more than one author profile, which I now know to be ludicrous because I have 2 author profiles. It's just really weird. The help section is not helpful. When I first published Missing, I added it to the author profile that I published my self-help books under, and I've actually stopped publishing these books. So it was actually easy to transfer Missing and all the book reviews that I had received over to my new author profile. So I created a new login and author profile and requested the books to be moved, and it literally took 2 clicks to request the move. And to also removed my reading goal over to my fiction profile, because I have a non-fiction author profile where I was listing my Goodreads reading goals, and all I read is fiction, so it wasn't really appropriate for that audience. So I moved that over as well, and I linked up Twitter and my Amazon's accounts to Goodreads, so every time I finish a book on my Kindle or the Kindle app, it'll update Goodreads and I won't have to do it, which is super exciting. So that's all the tasks I completed in terms of writing, book marketing, and email marketing. During the next month, I want to direct my focus back to rewriting book 2, announcing its new title and cover to my email list. The next episode will be another author diary update where I will discuss my writing and book marketing endeavors. If you have any questions or tips on book marketing that you would love to share with me, please come over to the blog post at authorpreneurpodcast.com/BTS032 and share your thoughts in the comments section. Thank you for listening and happy reading and writing, everybody. Thank you for listening to Amelia's Behind the Scenes Author Diary. You can find the episode show notes, back catalogue episodes, and lots more information at authorpreneurpodcast.com/podcast. I'm your host, Amelia, and I'll see you in the next Behind the Scenes Author Diary episode.